Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this Getting Started with CMALT webinar. This is part of our CMALT week, which is the first one we've been running this year. So our first ever CMALT week. We're on day 2, and we ran some fantastic events yesterday. We had a pre-recorded session from King's College London, which was all about our CMALT candidate course that we've just launched. And we also had some great one-to-one sessions with some assessors and candidates. And today is our first live session. So this is the introduction to certified membership. So this is a great session for anyone who is looking at starting their CMALT. Maybe you're thinking about registering for CMALT and you want to get a bit more information, or maybe you've registered and you want to know a bit more about completing your portfolio. Then this is the session for you. So we'll go through all the information that you'll need to know. And then I can take any questions and answers at the end. So if you've got any questions, do feel free to pop them in the chat. Do feel free to say hi in the chat as well and introduce yourself. It'd be great to get a feel for who we've got in the session today. So do let me know if you are already a registered candidate, or if you're looking to register yourself as a candidate. Let me know where you are in your CMALT journey. So today's session will go through the sort of overall accreditation scheme and the different pathways that we offer. We'll also look at the portfolio itself, how you write it, what it involves, and the kind of different formats that you can use as well. We'll go through the content of the portfolio, so all of those different subsections and sections that you need to complete, so all of the different core areas depending on the pathway that you choose. We'll look at the CMALT submission and assessment process. And then we'll also look at life after CMALT and what it means for you once you've actually completed your CMALT and passed your submission. As I say, there is a Q&A at the end, so do feel free to pop your questions in the chat during the session and we can answer them for you. So we'll start with the CMALT overview. So for those of you who aren't familiar, CMALT was developed around about 10 years ago, and it's our accreditation framework here at ALT, which gives yourself a pathway to peer-assessed accreditation. So it's completely assessed by current CMALT holders who volunteer as assessors. So we have a pool of around about 130 assessors who are at varying different levels of CMALT, and they all volunteer their time and give up their time to assess your portfolios. So the scheme is all peer assessed, and it's internationally recognised now as well, which is fantastic. So there are 3 pathways for CMALT. We have associate, we have standard CMALT, and we have senior CMALT. We'll talk a little bit more in detail about those and what that means for the portfolio throughout the session, but those are our 3 sort of pathways. Generally, most people start on CMALT, standard CMALT level, but depending on your job role and your experience within the sector, some people like to start on associate CMALT. So if you're new to learning technology, or if learning technology is only a small part of your job role, then we usually recommend you start on associate CMALT. And then depending on your experience and again the input you're having into learning tech, we do get some people who start on senior CMALT, but that's fairly unusual, but we do get it happen sometimes. So I'm just going to leave this slide up for you for a moment, just for you to familiarise yourself with ALT's definition of learning technology. It means something different depending on the organisation you speak to, but this is ALT's definition of learning technology as part of our strategy for 2020 to 2025. So that will get updated very soon, but yeah, this is our current definition of learning technology. And on the right hand side there, you can also see the 4 CMALT core principles. So these are the 4 things that underpin everything throughout the portfolio that you'll write. Everything, all the subsections, all the core areas need to have these 4 things underpinned throughout. So that's really important that you familiarise yourself with those 4 core principles. So we've got a commitment to communicate and disseminate best practice, a commitment to explore and understand the interplay between learning and technology, an empathy and willingness to learn from colleagues from different backgrounds and specialisms, and a commitment to keep up to date with new technologies. So the way that the pathway and the assessment works is you have a range of support to start with. So when you register as a candidate with us, and then you have 2 years to complete your portfolio and submit it to us. We recommend that you kind of take around 3 to 6 months to complete it, but you do have those 2 years. When you register, you get a lot of support and guidance from us, some of which I just mentioned earlier. We have introduced a new candidate course, which I'll talk you through. But we offer the full guidance and guidelines on our website. We offer a range of example portfolios at all levels. So you can go on and you can have a look at examples of good portfolios that have passed recently. And we also offer support webinars as well, and one-to-one sessions, which there's some more running later this week. So if anyone is interested, then do get in touch. And the other thing we offer is the CMALT candidate course, which we have just launched. So the course is open to anyone. You don't have to be registered to access it. And it is a fantastic resource which has been created by King's College London. At their digital team there have created it for us over the past few years. We've been working with them and it's fantastic. It's such a great resource for anyone who's starting CMALT. It pretty much walks you through the whole portfolio, how to write it, what kind of examples you could give. It has video content from current CMALT assessors so that they are giving tips and hints of how to reflect. There's a lot on reflective writing within it, but it walks you through and it gives you a really great guide to base yourself around your CMALT portfolio and really get started. So again, you can find that on our website and you can register for that. Like I say, you don't have to be registered as a CMALT candidate to actually access it. So you can have a good look through it before you register if you want to. So once you've actually written your portfolio, you then have it assessed by us. So it goes through 2 rounds of assessment. Again, we'll talk about this in a bit more detail going forwards, but this is just a summary. So it goes through 2 rounds of assessment by our pool of assessors, and they give some joint feedback to you. Sometimes some portfolios need reassessment, so you have to resubmit. If there's something that the assessors feel is missing, then you do get one chance to resubmit and then hopefully pass, and then you can then become part of the assessor community if you want to once you've passed. So if you feel like you'd like to become assessor, then you're more than welcome to join us. So again, this just runs through what you need to actually do to gain your certified accreditation. You need to demonstrate and reflect on your knowledge and experience in the 4 core areas and subsections. And depending on the level that you go for, the pathway, so associate, CMALT or senior, depends on how many specialist areas and so on that you need to do. So for senior, for example, you need to do specialist and advanced areas, but the guidance does tell you exactly how many sections you need to complete depending on the level you want to do. You also need to demonstrate your commitment to the core principles and values, which were those 4 things I just mentioned on the previous slide. So we'll go through the portfolio itself and the different sections and what they mean for you, what you need to do and what sections you need to complete depending on the level that you're looking at completing. So the portfolio can be in any digital format at all, literally any format, as long as it's digital and as long as it's shareable with the assessors, then we'll accept it. So there's no real restrictions on that. Just as long as it's accessible. So because it's a blind review pathway, you need to be able to give us access, either open access or through a password and login that you have created for us. So we can't expect our assessors to use their own personal email addresses to log in, because that would obviously take away the blind element of this review process. So yeah, we do ask you to share a login if it's not an open profile. So it's up to you how you share it with us, but yeah, any digital format at all. You can include anything that you want to in terms of evidence. So you can include images and multimedia. Some people do a lot through video recording. Yeah, so there's plenty of options for how you include your evidence. You obviously need to consider accessibility requirements, and there is a link there to the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines. I can share these slides with you after the session, so you can access that link there if you need more information on that. You need to then read our guidance document. So we have guidance document for each of the levels, and you need to read the one that's specific to your pathway, and then you can see exactly what you need to complete for your particular pathway. And once you've covered all your sections and your subsections, you can then submit it to us. You do need to consider, of course, how you'll access your portfolio going forwards. So if there might be a chance that you'll ever change a job or change institutions, for example, you might not be able to access your portfolio in a few years if it's on an institution website. So do consider how you might be able to use it going forwards and whether you'll have access. So as I mentioned, you can have as many different formats as you want, really. Some people use Google Sites, WordPress, various different websites. It's really up to you. You can also submit it on a Google Doc or a Microsoft Word document, however you want to, and we'll take it in that format as well. So yeah, however you want. And you can see on our portfolio sharing scheme on our website, you'll be able to see some examples of how other people have submitted and what kind of format they use. So it's worth looking on the portfolio register just to see how other people are doing theirs. So I'm just scrolling through some of your comments. I can see you're all saying hi and introducing yourselves. We've got quite a range of people here. Some people haven't started. Some people have. That's great. So yeah, great to see we've got quite a few different parts of your journey going on, which is great. So style-wise, it needs to be written as a narrative, and we highly recommend that you use subheadings to actually distinguish the different elements. So for example, obviously section your core areas, your subsections with headings, but also then some people find it easier to subtitle the evidence sections and reflection sections individually. So if you want to do that, we do recommend that's quite a good way of doing it. But again, it's not mandatory. And there's no particular word count, but we recommend around 500 or 600 words maximum for each subsection for the narrative elements. So yeah, it's not, we won't exclude any words over that, but we do recommend that you try to stick to that, just in terms of it's much easier for the assessor when it's a bit more concise. So yeah, do try and stick to that word guidance if you can. But again, if you go over by a bit, then it's not a problem. So each of the subsections will ask you to describe, reflect, and evidence as standards. So I'm going to go through the 3 sections now and how that relates to CMALT and how you can actually kind of put that into practice for your portfolio. So in terms of the description section, you need to identify your skills and experience against each of the subsections within the framework, and you need to give strong examples for each of the subsections. So we'd recommend that you concentrate on quality over quantity, as it says. So we'd rather see one really strong example than 3 or 4 slightly weaker ones. So choose a strong example and work with that for each of the subsections. If you want to use the same example across different subsections, that is okay, as long as you can evidence it and it meets the requirements for that particular subsection. Then you can use the same example more than once. So you need to clearly describe the context of the work that you're doing and how it relates to the subsection that you're writing about. And also, it's really important to make it clear that what your role was in the activity rather than you as part of a team. So make sure you focus specifically on your work. So once you've written your example, you then need to reflect on that example and that piece of work that you've done. This is the bit that people find trickiest. I think this is the bit that most people don't meet the requirements for when they submit, and this is probably the thing that most resubmissions get written for, is the reflective element. So it is an important section to think about. There's quite a few resources that we can offer you to help with the reflective element of the portfolio, one being the CMALT candidate course I mentioned earlier. That heavily focuses on the reflection elements of the portfolio, and it's got some really great video content from some assessors talking about those elements. So it's definitely worth walking through that candidate course at some point during your portfolio writing. We also recently ran a CPD webinar all about reflective writing with someone called Sarah Chesney from Lancaster University. She did a really great session on that, and there is a recording available on that. So yeah, if you want to have a look at that as well, that's highly recommended in terms of reflective writing. It's not specific to CMALT, that one, but she does touch on CMALT quite a bit, knowing obviously it was for our ALT members. So there's a few example questions on this slide here for you to just have a think about, take a note of, and just make a mental note of what you might need to consider when you're writing your portfolio and the reflective section. So what have you learned from doing what you're describing in the example? What went well? What could have gone better? What would you do differently next time? And what was the impact on your users or students or learning, whatever your context that you're in? I just noticed a question there from Daniel. I'll just answer that whilst we're going, Daniel, so I don't lose it. So you're asking, are associate members of ALT via institutional membership able to apply for CMALT or senior CMALT? Do applicants need to be individual full members of ALT? No, so you need to register as a CMALT candidate separately. So if you have got an associate membership through your institution, that's fine. Your registration will sit alongside that. So you can be an individual member or an associate member already. You just need to register as a candidate separately. So you don't need to be with an institution that's an organisational member or anything like that at all. So the evidence section of your portfolio, you can obviously use an appendix for this. So it doesn't need to be included in your word count, and you can use basically anything, essentially, as long as it's evidence that matches what you're saying you did, it can absolutely be used. So we have had in the past things like testimonials from other staff members or from users, screenshots of evidence, like, for example, a certificate of some professional development that you've done or something like that. We get a lot of video content, abstracts, feedback from colleagues, anything really that backs up what you're saying you did in your example. The evidence ideally shouldn't be older than 2 to 3 years from when you submit your portfolio. If it's a strong piece of evidence and it's still relevant, then it can be older. But generally, we recommend 2 to 3 years. And then you can cross-reference the same evidence from different parts of your portfolio if needed. So feel free to use the same piece of evidence for across multiple subsections. So to summarise, we have description, evidence, reflection. Pick 1 or 2 examples. Tell us exactly what you did. Then provide your... This is actually the wrong way around. It should be reflection next. I've just realised the slides are the wrong way around. So yeah, description first, then reflection, focusing on what you did, how you could do it differently next time, what went wrong, what went right, and what impact you made for your learners or users or colleagues. And then evidence. So make sure you have some strong evidence, whether it's from certificates, training, emails from other colleagues, whatever it is you want to use. And again, it can be video or media content as well. So now we'll move on to look at the overview of all of the different subsections that you need to complete for the portfolio. So this is where the different pathways start to come into play. So you can see in this slide, we've got all of the sections, then the subsections, and then we've got a grid showing whether they're included or not in your particular pathway. So you'll notice over the next couple of slides of these subsections that Associate CMALT has the fewest, CMALT has a few more, and then Senior CMALT has all of them. So you can see the kind of difference in levels of the amount of work you need to submit for the different pathways of CMALT. So for the first subsection, operational issues, CMALT and Senior CMALT have to complete everything, and then Associate CMALT, you need to complete 1A and 1B. So you need to complete an understanding of the constraints and benefits of technology, as well as technical knowledge and ability in the use of learning technology. And then if you're at CMALT or Senior CMALT, you need to also talk about supporting the deployment of learning technologies as well. Section 2 is all about learning, teaching and assessment processes. And again, everyone has to complete 2A, which is all about understanding of teaching, learning and or assessment processes. And then 2B, an understanding of your target learners, is not completed by Associate CMALT. Section 3 is the wider context, understanding and engaging with legislation, policies and standards. Again, everyone completes 3A, which is understanding and engaging with the legislation. And then just CMALT and Senior CMALT need to complete 3B, which is engaging with policies and standards. And then section 4 is across the board for all pathways. 4A is communication and working with others. And then in section 5, we move on to specialist areas. So Associate CMALT, at this point, you don't need to complete these. CMALT, you complete 1 specialist area, and Senior CMALT completes 2 specialist areas, and then the advanced areas are just for Senior CMALT. Then you've got future plans at the end, which everybody completes. So we'll go through each of the subsections and just discuss briefly what they involve. So the contextual statement is the first part of your portfolio, and it is really does what it says on the tin. It gives context. It's such a wide sector. We have assessors from such different roles, such different types of organisation, and it's really good to give your assessor, when they're reading, some sort of context as to where you're coming from, what you're doing, what your institution and your role is about, what your job is about, and just give them really an idea of what you've been up to so far in your career history and where you are now. Like I say, it's such a wide, broad spectrum of job roles that we have for candidates and assessors that it's really great to give an idea of context of your particular situation so that they can reflect that into your portfolio as they read it through. This isn't assessed, this section, so you won't get a mark for this part, but it's just really helpful, as I say. So core area 1 is all about operational issues. We've got A and B. So A is understanding the constraints and benefits of the different technologies. Again, you should provide 1 or 2 examples of these to show how you've used or supported someone else using a particular technology, given these constraints and benefits within your context of your role and your institution. And then B is technical knowledge and ability in the use of learning technology. And you need to show that you have used a range of different learning technologies. It can include, as you can imagine, a wide range of things. So VLEs, electronic assessment, blogs, wikis, mobile technology, AR, VR, programming, and so on, so on, and so on. Yeah, whatever specific to your role, you can use it as long as you're using it within your role and you can evidence it, then you can talk about it. And core area 1C is supporting the deployment of learning technologies. So again, this isn't for everyone, depending on your pathway, but this is to show you've provided technical support to teachers or learners, advising on technical and usability issues, developing strategies or policies, and so on. So in terms of evidence for core area 1, again, you can use anything that does sort of cover what you've talked about in the subsections. So some examples of things that we've had from previous portfolios that current CMALT holders have used, things like copies of certificates from relevant training that you've had, screenshots of actual work if you've produced something specific that you want to evidence that you're talking about, some sort of testimonial from another member of staff or another academic who's worked with you, or your line manager. Yeah, anything that evidences what you're talking about in that section. So core area 2 is all about the understanding of teaching, learning and or assessment processes. And in this section, you should demonstrate an understanding of and an engagement with these. So when we say engagement, what we mean by that is so anything that includes using understanding to inform the development, adaptation or application of technology. So it's quite a broad range. And when we talk about learners, we're talking about someone that you're working with. So it could be students or staff, depending on your role in your specific context. So your example should talk about your understanding of your learner context and how this relates to your engagement with the teaching, learning or assessment processes as well. And this is a really great section to think about the interplay between technology and learning and how technology is impacting on that. So when we're talking about those 4 key areas of CMALT, the principles, this is a really good section to talk about that one particular core principle. So I'm just reading your questions in the chat again. I'm just going to answer these now because I feel like I'll lose them. James is asking if you need to register on a specific pathway, or could you register as CMALT and then decided you've decided you've got sufficient evidence for senior CMALT or vice versa. So James, the answer to that is that you can change when you register. you register for the set level that you want to do, and then if you decide, for example, if you register for CMALT and then you decide actually you want to submit senior CMALT, you can pay the upgrade fee and just submit senior CMALT. So we would just ask you to pay the upgrade fee because there's a slight difference in cost between the pathways. And then once you've done that, you can submit the higher level. That's not a problem. Just trying to find that other question I saw somewhere. Where's it gone? So James Parker's asking, going to struggle to provide. Okay, so James is going to struggle to provide evidence within the last 2 years, and is completing senior CMALT. That's fine, James, as long as the evidence is you've got some strong evidence examples and is still relevant, then you can use it. So we recommend 2 to 3 years as a guide, but we do accept evidence that's older than that if it's still relevant and it's strong. And one more question from Leslie, just while we're here. Any time constraints between registering and submitting your portfolio? The time constraint is 2 years, so you've got quite a while. So your registration lasts for 2 years. You can submit any time within that 2 years. Once you've submitted and then you hopefully pass, or you might need to resubmit and then pass, you then get your 1 year's membership included, which is included in your registration fee. So your first year of membership is included from the moment that you pass, but you've got 2 years prior to that. And follow-up question, would it be best to develop your portfolio first, then register? It doesn't really matter either way, Leslie, I'd say. We recommend that you register, but all of our resources are open access at the moment. So so you could, some people do prepare it and then register and submit quite soon afterwards. So it is up to you. Okay, so core area 3 is all about the wider context, understanding and engaging with legislation. So this section is all about demonstrating wider issues that inform your practice. So all candidates need to give at least one example of one legislative area. Some examples here on the screen of things that some people have used before. So you can use legislation around equality, intellectual property, freedom of information, GDPR, and so on. Obviously, if you're based outside of the UK, then you need to demonstrate how your work it relates to a relevant piece of legislation from where you are working. So you can use a piece of legislation outside of the UK if you are based outside of the UK. And there's the subsection A and B. So A is understanding and engaging with the legislation, and B is understanding and engaging with policies and standards. So associate CMALT, you only need to cover section A, which is understanding the legislation, one area. CMALT candidates, you need to cover one legislative area and a second legislative area or policy area in section B. And senior CMALT, you need to cover everything. And again, with evidence for this section, this core area 3, again, quite a lot of people use evidence of relevant training they've undertaken in this section in terms of the legislation that they're referring to, or a particular qualification that it relates to, evidence of any work that you've produced, or your contribution to relevant planning work around the legislation as well is quite a good piece of evidence to use. Your evidence should show how the relevant piece of legislation has influenced your work. And you should really only concentrate on one piece of legislation, consider it how it impacts your work, and on your teaching and learning in your context of your institution. And finally, core area 4, which is communication and working with others. So all pathways have to complete this section. Associate, CMALT, and senior, all 3 pathways complete this. And it's there to demonstrate your knowledge and skills in communication and working with others. So you should, again, choose one strong example. And some examples that you could use might describe things like the way your work involves collaboration, participation in a team, collaborative working. And again, this is a great section to address some of the core principles of CMALT. So that one about disseminating and sharing, communicating, keeping up to date. That's a great one to reference here. So do always remember to kind of thread your core principles throughout your portfolio. But there's some sections where some of them lend themselves nicely to those core areas, and this is one of those. And similar really to the other sections, this one, so evidence, you can use anything that shows the collaboration that you've done. And again, it's quite easy to use like testimonials from colleagues and things like that in this section. So that's quite often what people might use in this particular section. And now we move on to specialist areas. So associate CMALT don't have to complete these. If you're doing CMALT, you need to complete 1 specialist area. And if you're doing senior CMALT, you need to complete 2 specialist areas. So again, I'm just going to pause here and let you look through this list rather than me read it out. So these are just some examples of previous specialist areas that that other candidates have submitted to us. When you submit, you need to let us know the specialist areas that you've covered. And these are just some of the examples that we have from previous candidates. So just have a glance through these and see if any of them might jump out to you as something that could be something that's within your context, in your role. Okay, so with the specialist area, your specific topic that you choose should reflect an area where you have particular expertise. So it might be something that's specific to your role, or it might be something across your whole team, but it has to go beyond the use of and engagement with learning technology, which would be expected from anyone within your sort of sector or role. So, and again, in describing your specialist areas, always refer back to those core values, those CMALT principles. And very similar list of kind of evidence that you can use. That's the one good thing, is that all of your evidence can be similar throughout, similar types of things that you want to use. And advanced areas should describe and reflect on an area of your professional practice that reflects advanced skills, expertise, insight, and impact, such as research, policy work, leadership, or strategy. Now, this is for senior CMALT only. So you need to choose, if you're looking at senior CMALT, you need to choose 1 advanced area and follow the same process: description, reflection, and evidence. But you need to, again, weave those 4 core principles through this particular example. And again, at the bottom of this slide are some examples that previous candidates have used. So some focusing around leadership in certain sections, policymaking, research. So various different kind of examples for you there. And this slide is just noting that we understand that senior CMALT holders might work in diverse contexts and roles. So you don't necessarily have to be working in a senior management role to complete senior CMALT. But what we do expect is for you to be able to demonstrate and articulate leadership and impact in learning technology within your particular context. So it's not about the job title that you hold, it's about what you're actually doing within your role. And the final bit is the future plans section. Again, this is not assessed, but it's really good for your professional development. And when you come to reflect, when you complete a portfolio review, which you need to complete every 3 years once you've passed, it's a really good way of kind of completing that and basing your portfolio review on your previous future plans. So we ask for around 200 to 500 words, just to let your assessor know what your future aims are, and get a sense of where you hope to be going forwards. And like I say, it's really useful for your professional development and your portfolio reviews. So once you've passed your portfolio and you get accredited, we request that you complete a portfolio review once every 3 years. So that's just a kind of it's not a full portfolio, it's just a review section to talk about where you are now. So it's just an additional section that we ask you to add once every 3 years, just to talk about your progress so far. And then you need to also make sure you add a confirmation. This is in the guidance, so you can copy and paste it, but it needs to declare that everything is your own work, and you need to sign it electronically and date it before you submit. So then now we'll move on to submission and assessment. So we'll go through the logistics and the practicalities of how you submit, when you submit, all of those things. So we recommend you go through our checklist, which is on our website, just to check that you've done everything that you need to do. So you've done all the sections that you need to do relevant to your pathway. You need to make sure that you've given clear examples, clear reflection, and also referred to those 4 CMALT core principles. And you also need to proofread it as well. And in terms of submission, we used to have submission windows, which you may have heard of if you have known about CMALT for a while. If you're new to CMALT, then this won't mean anything to you. But we used to run submission windows 3 times a year. Now, for 2025, we are piloting having submissions open all the time. So currently we are open throughout 2025 for submissions. We don't have any windows. There's no restrictions on when you can submit. You can just go on and submit whenever you're ready. And we're finding that it's making things easier for assessors in terms of being able to plan their assessment time, and also it's much easier for candidates to be able to go on and just submit when they're ready rather than having to wait till the next window. So the pilot's going really well at the moment, and we're finding it's having quite a few positives for both candidates and assessors. So that will run at least until the end of 2025, and then from 2026 we'll make a decision on whether we go back to submission windows or whether we continue with having rolling submissions throughout the year. But if you're planning on submitting this year, you can submit whenever you wish, and then if you're looking at 2026 and beyond, then do just keep your eye out on our website to see what happens from that point onwards. So we have a submission form on our website which you submit through. So once you're registered, you will be able to access that submission form. If you can't access the form, it's likely because you're not registered or something like that. So as soon as you're registered, you can submit through that form. And once you've submitted your portfolio, it comes through to us. We then match it to some of our assessors from our volunteer pool. As I said at the start of the session, we have a fantastic pool of around about 130 assessors. They work really hard throughout the year to assess a whole range of different portfolios at all different levels. and they do a fantastic job. So yeah, it's really great to have them all on board with us, and we could not do this scheme without them. So they are a fantastic bunch of people. And like I said earlier as well, if you are interested in becoming an assessor once you've passed your assessment, then please do feel free to think about that. So we match your submission with 2 assessors who are at the correct level for your portfolio submission. So they'll always assess either the same level or a lower level than they already hold. So that just means that senior CMALT assessors, senior CMALT submissions have to be assessed by a senior assessor. And they will give you an assessment outcome for every single subsection. It will either be strong, adequate, or revisions required. So strong generally obviously means that you've documented really well, there's strong evidence, strong reflection. Adequate means that you've met the requirements and you've done the description, evidence, and reflection that you need. Revisions required means that at least one of either description, evidence, or reflection, or more of, or all of them, need improvement within that subsection. So for every single subsection, you get an outcome: strong, adequate, or revisions required. And then you get an overall assessment outcome. So when you get your transcript back from your submission, you'll have lots of subsection assessment outcomes, and then you'll have an overall assessment outcome. And these are the 4 overall assessment outcomes you can see on the screen at the moment. You can get a pass with distinction, you can get a pass, you can get referral minor, or a referral major. So if you have any revisions required at all, then you'll automatically be in one of the referral categories. So you cannot pass if you have any revisions required. If you have some minor revisions that just need a few tweaks, or maybe just 1 or 2 subsections that need some amendments, or very light amendments across a few more, then it will be a referral minor. If you have some significant revision to be done, either across multiple sections or some significant revision across 1 or 2, then it will be a major revision. So if you are given a minor or major revision, you do get a second chance to resubmit. So included in your registration fee is the option to resubmit a second time. So you can go away, you can revise your portfolio based on the transcript, the feedback you're given in your transcript from your 2 assessors, and you can then resubmit when you're ready. And obviously if you pass, then you become a certified member of VALT, and you are encouraged to share your portfolio via the portfolio register. You're encouraged to become an assessor if you want to, and really get involved with the CMALT community. If you are unfortunate enough to have to resubmit, then there are 3 assessment outcomes at that stage. So you can either pass or fail, essentially. There's a pass or a pass with distinction, which means that you have met all of the requirements that were needed in the first submission. Or if you still don't meet those requirements, then it is unfortunately a fail, and you cannot then resubmit. You'd have to re-register again if you wanted to do it, or you could think about going resubmitting at a lower level. So you could maybe re-register at a lower level if that was something that might be beneficial. If you do fail, which is very rare, but if you do, we will have a conversation with you and suggest what we think you should do and what our assessors think you should do. Sometimes it's just that you were at the wrong level. We do usually discuss that with you at the first submission though. So if you submit your first submission and your assessors think you should be maybe going for a level lower, they will give you that feedback and let you know, and we will give you that opportunity to submit at a lower level. So there's generally not, it's not very common to fail. It's very common to get a resubmission. So if you get a resubmission on the first submission, don't be disheartened, because that is a lot more common. But then hopefully most people do pass on the resubmission. I just saw a question from Matthew. It's not sure how the best to ask, but does pass with distinction mean anything different to a pass? Very good question. essentially not really, which is why I kind of skirted over it, because we're actually looking at dropping those. The distinction for that very reason. There's very little difference, and it's very open to interpretation as to whether someone has passed or passed with distinction. So we are actually looking at dropping the pass with distinction. It's not confirmed, but we are looking at doing that. So yeah, you may find that going forwards, when you submit your portfolio, that pass with distinction might no longer be an option. So yeah, very good question, very relevant at the moment. Yeah, and I think I saw, sorry, my chat just jumps on Zoom. Every time I go and read something, it jumps around. So let me see if I can find that question I just saw. Oh, I think I saw something about someone asking 5,000 words or something earlier. Yes, here we go. Mark was asking if it's 500 words per subsection, is that 5,000 words for CMALT standard? I mean, yes, I guess technically it is. We don't like to put a number on the overall portfolio because it is kind of open to, you know, there is some room for manoeuvre, you know, but yes, as a guide, roughly, yes, that would be how it would be. I think I saw sorry, just one moment. Yes, I think somebody is asking if the recording is going to be shared. Yes, absolutely, it will be. So you haven't missed out anything, don't worry. So I'll just carry on with the rest of the presentation, and then we'll just finish off those last few questions that are coming in at the moment. I can see some people typing. So yeah, I'll just catch up with the remaining questions at the end. So life after CMALT is the final section here. So once you've passed your CMALT and you are a certified member, like I mentioned earlier, you have to refresh your portfolio once every 3 years. So your certificate is valid for 3 years, and you submit a portfolio review every 3 years, and you get given a new certificate. Your membership with us renews annually, so that's slightly different. So you pay your membership fee every year and renew that, but then every 3 years alongside that, you renew with a portfolio review, which is included in your membership fee. So yeah, no charge on that. It's all included in your membership fee, and submissions are done in the usual way, which at the moment is any time, but you can see those dates from previously. But yeah, at the moment you can submit your portfolio reviews anytime. We also encourage you to share your portfolio. So as a current CMALT candidate or someone who's interested in registering for CMALT, you might have looked on the portfolio register already. It's a really useful resource for people who are thinking of doing CMALT or unsure of the level they should do. It's really useful to be able to look and see some current examples of good portfolios on our website. So we do encourage you to share your portfolio on that sharing initiative. And as I've been mentioning a few times, if you want to become an assessor, then you are more than welcome to. We're always really keen to have people join us. There's no sort of minimum or maximum commitment. You can do as much or as little as you want to throughout the year. So we have some assessors who just do 1 or 2 portfolios a year, and then we have some that do 3 or 4 a month. So yeah, it's quite a range of commitment level, but it's really useful for your CPD, of course, your professional development. And I think a lot of our assessors say what they gain from it is a really good insight of the sector and the industry as a whole. So, you know, you get to see a lot of different roles within the sector that maybe you don't come across very often. So it's really interesting to see different institutions and how they're working and what they're doing, and different technologies and different things that people are using within their role. So yeah, it's quite an interesting role. I can see we've got one of our assessors on here at the moment, actually, so hello to you. Yeah, and then the help section. So we've got a few different ways you can get help. Obviously, on our website, you'll find everything such as our guidelines, the CMALT criteria, help on how to register, help on how to submit your portfolio, all that kind of thing is all on there. So that's kind of a really great place to start. We've also got a few links here, which again, you'll be able to access via the presentation when I send it out to you. But you can also email us cmalt@alt.ac.uk. And we'll get back to you with any inquiries or questions that you have. If you have anything specific you want to ask, or if you are interested in one of those one-to-one sessions with an assessor, if you are currently writing your portfolio and you want a bit more tailored support, then we are running some of those as part of CMALT Week. So do feel free to contact us and we can see if there's any slots available. So that is that's the best sort of help, is really to start on the website or email us, and we're always on the end of the email to give you any advice or guidance. One thing I will mention as well is as this is part of CMALT Week, this event, you are entitled to a 20% discount off of CMALT registration for having attended an event. So for those of you who are hanging on for the QR code for that, I can send it to you. You're eligible for 20% off any registration on CMALT between now and the 31st of July. So you've got plenty of time to register if you are interested in using that, and I will send that through to you all. So let me just go and see if there's any questions. Feel free to drop them in the chat now, and I will work my way through in the last 5 minutes that we have. So I'm just going to find, where were we? Let's have a look. Okay, we've answered that one. Here we go. Sorry, this chat. Does anyone else find this with Zoom that the chat jumps? I just not sure why. Sorry about this. Trying to catch up. If you achieve pass, oh no, we've done that one. We did that one. David, so Deva is saying that David Curran had a question on operational issues. I can't find that question. So David, if you're still around and you want me to answer it, do feel free to email me. If not, and I can answer it. Thank you for joining us. Those of you who are saying goodbye, thank you very much for joining us. Daniel's asking, do we have to submit by 31st of July? No, you don't. You just need to register. So I will send out a QR code to those of you who attended today, and you just need to register on our website by 31st of July. That will give you 2 years, so till July 2027 to submit. So yeah, you just need to register with us. So unless there's any other questions, that I can't see anything else coming in, but thank you very much for joining us today, everybody. I really hope it's been useful for you, and do join us on any other CMALT sessions that we're having during CMALT Week this week. We'd be delighted to see you at anything. And yeah, if you've got any questions or anything in the meantime, then do feel free to email us.